Visa-free Jamaica is over. Dignity politics just collided with American expectations, and Caribbean power is suddenly playing by new rules. In this video, we are going to look at Jamaica's 2025 shockwave, visas for Americans, tiered tourist taxes, and tight property rules. We'll unpack the reciprocity argument, why Kingston pivoted toward Chinese infrastructure money, and how Operation Respect the Culture reframes tourism behavior. We'll track the new Caribbean bloc, the social media war, and Jamaica's pushback on U.S. military expansion. Then we'll weigh winners, losers, and likely ripple effects for Barbados, Trinidad, and beyond. By the end, you'll know what changed, why it matters, and how travelers should adapt today. That nightmare is no longer fiction. It's the new reality for millions of American travelers in 2025. Jamaica, once known as one of the Caribbean's most open and welcoming paradises for U.S. citizens, has just made a decision so bold that it's rippling across the entire region. What started as a change in travel policy has escalated into something much bigger, a battle over sovereignty, pride, and who really calls the shots in the Caribbean. Before we unpack it all, make sure to hit subscribe, because the shifts happening in Jamaica today aren't just about visas or vacations. They could reshape how small nations negotiate with superpowers for decades to come. Visa-free access revoked, 0:50 to 3 o'clock. For decades, Americans treated Jamaica like a backyard escape. No forms, no interviews, no red tape. If you had a U.S. passport, you walked in freely. That era ended in 2025. This year, Jamaica revoked visa-free entry for U.S. citizens. Now, instead of strolling into Montego Bay with ease, Americans are forced to apply for visas, filling out paperwork, paying non-refundable fees, and waiting weeks, sometimes even months, for approval. And the reason behind this drastic change can be summed up in one word: reciprocity. For years, Jamaicans endured a brutally tough U.S. visa system. Many applicants were denied without explanation. Others waited months in uncertainty. Every Jamaican traveler had to pay hundreds of dollars in fees, often just for rejection. Meanwhile, Americans faced none of those hurdles when entering Jamaica. A Jamaican government minister cut straight to the point: "We are not second-class citizens. If America makes our people pay, then their people should pay too." For Americans, the move felt like betrayal. Jamaica was supposed to be their closest Caribbean partner. But for Jamaicans, it was about dignity. Finally, the playing field felt level. Next is the new tourist tax. As if the visa rule wasn't enough, Jamaica threw a second curveball on August 1st, 2025. A brand new tourist tax, and Americans are the ones paying the steepest price. The new system is tiered. Visitors from countries with fairer visa policies for Jamaicans, like Canada and the UK, pay a lower rate. But for Americans, a hefty 25% higher tax on hotels, tours, restaurants, and even airport services. The Jamaican government argues this isn't discrimination, it's economic justice. For decades, too much of the island's tourism profit ended up in the pockets of foreign-owned resorts and corporations. The new tax, officials say, ensures more money stays in Jamaica, funding schools, hospitals, and roads for everyday citizens. But for many Americans, this was personal. They saw it as Jamaica deliberately targeting them, the very people who've historically made up the largest slice of the island's tourist economy. Next is property restrictions for U.S. expats. It didn't stop there. For decades, Americans didn't just vacation in Jamaica, they moved there. Thousands bought up beachfront villas, tucked into gated communities, and turned coastal villages into retirement paradises. But in 2025, Jamaica drew a line in the sand, literally. The government introduced strict new property laws aimed squarely at foreigners. Now, prime coastal land cannot be freely purchased by outsiders. Higher taxes, stricter regulations, and long approval processes apply, especially to Americans. Realtors report that U.S. interest in Jamaican property has plummeted by nearly 50% since the law passed. For locals, though, it's a victory. Land once slipping into foreign hands is now better protected for future generations. For Jamaicans, this was sovereignty. For Americans, it was the dream of retiring in paradise suddenly slipping away. Next is turning to China, not the USA. If Washington thought these changes were just about tourism, Jamaica made sure to prove otherwise. In 2025, Kingston signed nearly $3 billion worth of infrastructure deals with China. Road expansions, new ports, and even a proposed high-speed rail line connecting Kingston to Montego Bay are now in Chinese hands. Washington, which spent years dragging its feet on investment promises, was completely sidelined. A U.S. senator quickly called it a slap in the face. Jamaica's response was blunt. America had its chance. China delivered. This wasn't just about infrastructure. It was a signal to the world. Jamaica no longer sees the United States as its only partner, or even its preferred one. Next is Operation Respect the Culture. Then came the cultural showdown. A viral video of American tourists mocking Jamaican vendors inaugural triggered outrage nationwide. Within days, the government launched Operation Respect the Culture. Airports now feature giant posters reading, "Respect our people, our land, our culture," or "Don't come at all." New laws mean tourists who cause disturbances, insult locals, or damage property can be blacklisted, banned from returning, and publicly shamed online. For Americans, it felt like hostility. For Jamaicans, it was long overdue. After years of being treated like a backdrop for vacation selfies, Jamaica was demanding respect on its own terms. Next is a new regional bloc. By June 2025, the shockwave spread even wider. Jamaica officially joined a new Caribbean economic bloc alongside Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Suriname, and others. This wasn't just another alliance. It was a direct move to reduce dependence on Washington and the IMF. The bloc launched a regional digital currency, pooled energy resources, and created a climate resilience fund with backing from China and the UAE. For Washington, it was a red flag. For Jamaica, it was independence finally taking shape in real time. Next is the social media war, and then the battle went online. Almost overnight, #BoycottJamaica exploded across American social media. Thousands of angry travelers vowed to take their dollars to Mexico or the Dominican Republic instead. But the backlash didn't go unanswered. Younger Americans, especially on TikTok and Instagram, pushed back. They sided with Jamaica. "America doesn't own the Caribbean," one viral post declared. "Let them grow without our shadow." Soon, #RespectJamaica was trending worldwide. What started as a visa debate turned into a cultural power struggle, fought in the global town square of social media. Next is blocking U.S. military presence. And then came the final straw. Washington hoped to expand radar stations and Coast Guard facilities in Jamaica, strengthening its military footprint in the Caribbean. But in July 2025, Jamaica said no, a senior official declared, "We will not allow our land to be used as a staging ground for anyone's geopolitical games." Jamaica is not a pawn. We are a sovereign nation. For analysts, this was a nightmare, U.S. influence in the Caribbean visibly weakening. For Jamaicans, it was clarity. They refused to be dragged into another Cold War between America and China. Next is the bigger picture. Taken together, these moves form one of the boldest shifts in modern Caribbean history. In 2025, Jamaica has redrawn its relationship with America, revoking visa-free access, taxing American tourists, restricting U.S. property ownership, signing billion-dollar deals with China, launching Operation Respect the Culture, joining a new Caribbean bloc, rejecting U.S. military expansion. Each decision carries the same message. Jamaica is equal. Jamaica is sovereign. Jamaica will not play by America's rules anymore. For Americans, it feels like betrayal. For Jamaicans, it feels like freedom. We've seen how Jamaica stunned the world with its visa rules, tourist tax, property restrictions, Chinese partnerships, cultural demands, regional bloc membership, and military rejection. But the story doesn't end there. What's unfolding in 2025 is bigger than Jamaica alone. It's about the future of the Caribbean, the shifting balance of global power, and the possibility that one small island just lit the fuse on a regional revolution. So now, let's go deeper. into the ripple effects, the historical context, and the battles still to come. For decades, Washington viewed Jamaica as a loyal partner. It wasn't just about tourism, it was about strategy. Jamaica was seen as part of America's sphere of influence in the Western Hemisphere, a place where the US dollar, US culture, and US policy reigned supreme. So when Jamaica announced that Americans now needed visas, the backlash in Washington was immediate. Senators blasted it as unfriendly. Travel associations warned of a tourism crash. Talk show hosts painted Jamaica as biting the hand that feeds it. But beneath the outrage was fear. Fear that other Caribbean nations would follow. If Jamaica, the most iconic tourist destination in the region, could stand up to the United States, what would stop Barbados, Trinidad, or the Bahamas from doing the same? The big question everyone asked: would this kill Jamaica's tourism industry? After all, Americans made up nearly 2 million visitors in 2024 alone, almost half of all tourist arrivals. Losing them could devastate the economy. But here's the twist. Jamaica wasn't blindsided. They had a plan. First, they leaned on Canada and the UK, where visa rules for Jamaicans are more relaxed. Canadians already love Jamaica, especially during harsh winters, and many own second homes on the island. The UK, with deep historical ties, also remained loyal. Both groups faced lower taxes under the new system, encouraging even more visits. Second, Jamaica began aggressively courting tourists from new markets: China, India, and Brazil. Direct flights from Shanghai and Mumbai were announced for late 2025, backed by the same Chinese investment fueling infrastructure projects. And third, Jamaica doubled down on regional tourism, encouraging visitors from neighboring Caribbean nations to spend their holidays at home instead of flying to Florida or New York. By mid-2025, early numbers showed something shocking. While US arrivals had dropped 35%, Canadian and European arrivals were up 28%. Chinese tourist numbers, though small, were growing rapidly. The sky hadn't fallen, it had simply shifted. But here's where the story takes a sharper turn. Jamaica's pivot to China isn't just about roads and railways, it's about leverage. By signing $3 billion worth of infrastructure deals, Jamaica effectively invited Beijing to play a central role in its development. Critics in Washington immediately raised alarm bells, warning of debt traps and hidden strings. But Jamaica brushed it off. Officials argued that China offered what America never did: real money, real projects, real progress. A decade of promises from Washington had delivered little more than aid tied to conditions. Beijing, on the other hand, built stadiums, highways, and ports in record time. For Jamaicans tired of waiting, the choice was obvious. Still, this alignment raised new questions. Would Jamaica remain truly independent, or simply trade one master for another? For now, Jamaicans seemed willing to take that risk, betting that diversification of partnerships was better than total dependence on the US. Operation Respect the Culture struck a nerve far beyond Jamaica. For years, Caribbean nations complained quietly about tourists treating locals like props, cultures like costumes, and communities like playgrounds. Jamaica just said it out loud and made it law. The campaign turned airports and hotels into classrooms of pride. Signs reminded visitors of the country's heroes: Marcus Garvey, Bob Marley, Louise Bennett. Guides trained tourists on etiquette before tours. Beach vendors were given official ID badges to reduce harassment complaints. Some Americans bristled, calling it overly sensitive or hostile. But many younger travelers loved it. On TikTok, influencers praised Jamaica's push for cultural respect, saying it made their trips feel more authentic. What once looked like a PR disaster was quickly becoming a brand. Jamaica as the Caribbean's unapologetic voice of pride. The online war didn't die down. #BoycottJamaica kept trending among older Americans, while #RespectJamaica grew louder among younger voices worldwide. Tourism boards in Mexico and the Dominican Republic ran ads saying we still welcome Americans. Jamaican influencers clapped back, showcasing vibrant culture and the new pride movement. It wasn't just a policy shift anymore, it was a cultural shift. And Jamaica was winning hearts as much as headlines. The most important question: Would others follow? By late 2025, whispers spread that Barbados was reviewing its visa policies. Trinidad and Tobago began talks with China about port upgrades. Grenada hinted at joining the property protection movement. Jamaica had thrown the first punch, but the echoes were being felt across the region. If more islands joined, America's Caribbean dominance could unravel in ways no one thought possible. For Jamaica, the long game is clear. Diversify tourism markets, protect local land, build new infrastructure, demand respect for culture, and, most importantly, negotiate with Washington as equals, not dependents. For America, the long game is less clear. Retaliation could backfire. Ignoring the shift could embolden others. Adapting may require humility Washington isn't used to showing. Either way, the balance of power in the Caribbean has changed forever. What we're witnessing is more than policy. It's a transformation. Jamaica, once branded as nothing more than beaches and reggae, is now positioning itself as a sovereign force demanding recognition. For Americans, the shock is real. No more free rides. No more backyard vacations without paperwork. No more unchecked property grabs. And no guaranteed influence over Jamaica's future. For Jamaicans, it's a rebirth. Painful, risky, but full of possibility. Jamaica's 2025 pivot is bigger than visas. It's a declaration of terms, reciprocity, respect, and regional leverage over convenience. The island priced access, protected land, diversified partners, and demanded cultural dignity. Accept it or choose another beach. For travelers and investors, clarity is power. Verify entry rules, budget new taxes, respect local norms, and assess geopolitical risk like any serious market. For policymakers, humility and partnership beat pressure. Small nations aren't props, they're players. If this breakdown sharpened your view of the Caribbean's new reality, like the video, share it, and please subscribe for more sober, high-signal analysis. Thanks for watching.